Caleb Williams made two of the most impressive throws outside of the pocket that maybe we've ever seen a Chicago Bears quarterback make against the Cincinnati Bengals on Saturday. But that wasn't until after he and the Bears offense went 3 and out 3 times in a row against the Bengals backups.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on all of your favorite social media platforms, including the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On the show today, we recap the Chicago Bears' big preseason win over the Cincinnati Bengals, where things started slow for Caleb Williams in the offense before things really took off. And we saw some of the most impressive quarterbacking we've seen in a long time. Really, really impressive throws, capped off by a really nice touchdown run as well. Some of this credit should belong to the offensive line for giving Caleb Williams some time there, but we'll evaluate where that group is at this stage of the process as we saw them about as healthy as they've been all preseason in this game, but still leaving something to be desired, again, against Bengals backups. And we'll look at some of the other standouts on the defensive line, some of the backups who really did a good job in this game to give you more confidence in the depth players behind the starters, that if the Bears have an injury and a guy needs to come off the bench at a number of different spots, you like some of the flashes you saw in this game against Cincinnati to give you some confidence in those guys if you need them in a pinch. But obviously, the story of this game and the story of every preseason game and really every game from here on out is going to be Caleb Williams. And it was a concerningly slow start for the Chicago Bears offense that finished with a spectacular, first it was the deep bomb to Tyler Scott that was defensive pass interference. Then it was a similar type of deep bomb to Rome Odunze. This one instead outside of the pocket, scrambling to his left, much more difficult of a throw. And then also the one in the back of the end zone to Rome Odunze where he was standing outside of the end zone, but was otherwise a perfect throw on a really difficult play, and then finishes with a touchdown run. Like, that was everything we had been wanting to see from Caleb Williams, and it came after the Bears offense had struggled quite a bit. So they come out against a Bengals defense that isn't rolling with its starters on either side of the ball. Maybe some rotational guys who will get playing time among starters, but not any of their big name talented players. And still, the Bears come out 3 straight passes, end up punting 3 and out. Next drive, 3 and out. Next drive, 3 and out. And all of a sudden, Caleb Williams has played 3 drives, but only has 9 plays, and we're into the second quarter wondering, is Caleb going to keep playing? Are they going to play him all the way up to halftime? Because you're trying to balance giving him reps and opportunities out there, but you don't want to expose him to too much of an injury risk. And he got sacked a couple of times throughout these drives. How much longer do you let him go? But you also would like him to be able to get something positive out there to build off of. And that really started with the deep throw to Tyler Scott. Play action. Fields had a nice pocket to step up in and throw a deep ball to him. Sure looked like it was going to land right in the breadbasket there of Tyler Scott, in front of and away from where the defender was, but the defender ends up kind of pulling down on Tyler Scott's jersey and draws the defensive pass interference flag. So it's as good as a completion for the offense. Just Caleb doesn't get those yards and completion on his stat sheet, but set them up right in field goal range, end up getting sacked a couple plays later. They kind of throw a check down and take the field goal, but hey, it's points. After 3 straight drives of 3 and outs against Cincinnati Bengals backups, it was nice to just say, all right, here's a field goal. Things are rolling nicely. And then, of course, the next drive, Caleb Williams ends up rolling left outside of the pocket, escapes the pressure, and throws while moving to his left across his body. Super difficult throw to make, and drops it in an absolute dime to Rome Odunze, again, away from the defender to the outside shoulder. It was a scramble drill type of adjustment, backyard football stuff, where that's just 2 guys who have been practicing a lot with each other throughout the offseason, quickly communicating and getting on the same page about where he wanted Rome to go and where that ball should be placed based on how Rome adjusted after the route had sort of run its course. So you have a beautiful ball there to get them into the red zone. In the red zone, okay, some pressure there and, ends up having to throw it away at some point. But there was the ball to Rome Odunze in the back of the end zone where Caleb's rolling to his right. There's a pass rusher right in his face. He kind of gives him this stutter move and doesn't spin around him, but gets him to hesitate and then pulls away from him as he's rolling. And he's almost going out of bounds as he fires that ball to Rome Odunze. It was open in the back corner of the end zone, but too far out of the back of the end zone. Some controversy over the back line of the end zone was not painted all the way through. The front of the back and the back of the back was painted, but it was green grass in between, so that maybe in Rome Odunze's peripheral vision, it wasn't as clearly distinguished as inbounds versus out of bounds. I think generally you would expect an NFL wide receiver to know the difference either way and still be able to make that play. Odunze took the blame for it there, said he's got to be better about it, plans on being better about it, but still, a phenomenal throw from Caleb Williams. That one, the Tyler Scott throw and the deep bomb to Odunze were three just top-notch, incredible throws by Caleb, and only one of them actually counted. Only one of them goes on the stat sheet as a completed pass, and that's what's a little bit of a shame for how great those throws were in this game. But along with that, Caleb had some poor throws too, and I don't mean to overlook or skip past the touchdown run, which is a really nice, extend the play, roll to his left. Eyes were downfield the entire time. You could see even right before he's going to cross the line of scrimmage, he's still signaling with his offhand to the receiver. It's hey, go left or go right. He was looking to throw, and he only tucked it at the very end. But you could tell his eyes were locked downfield, trying to find something to throw and then saying, all right, screw it. I'll just take the yards and the touchdown with my legs. So he doesn't get a passing touchdown on his stat sheet in this game either. But that was after the first few drives of the 3-and-outs. There were a few throws there that just got away from him. And I don't think there were any plays where it struck you as wow, a bad decision by Caleb. I don't think we've seen any of those through the two preseason games where it's just what was he thinking there? Or, why did he even try to throw that ball? Every decision he's made has made decent sense. But, missed Keenan Allen on the first drive on what should have been a fairly easy out route. Sounds like a little bit of a miscommunication there. He tried to roll right and throw back to Gerald Everett and check down there, but it was kind of tricky pass there. And some of the stuff just felt like it was off mechanically. And I think it's a good status report on Caleb Williams right now, where it's oh yeah, we saw in this game, and I've seen it before, that he can do all of the spectacular things that we saw him do at USC. That translates to the NFL, and he can make a ridiculous throw into his left deep ball on the perfect spot downfield type of throw. Or in the last preseason game against the Bills, rolling to his right and throwing it across his body to Cole Kmet downfield without really throwing from a steady base underneath it. That stuff absolutely is there and meets all of the hype from Caleb Williams. But then there were a couple plays in this game where he stepped up in the pocket and started to step outside a little bit and then threw with a funny off platform and completely missed a pretty wide open Gerald Everett, on the far sideline. And it looked like he kind of got tripped up a little bit just by the grass, but there was not a pass rusher bearing down on him. There wasn't immediate pressure in his face. He had time to stop, set his feet and throw, or at least reset in some form. You can kind of do a moving reset. It's not like you have to literally stop, but mechanically, he just kind of rushed that play because he was stepping up and trying to throw. And it's you don't have to go off platform all the time. He'll make the spectacular off platform plays, but hey, don't be afraid to just settle it down and take the easy throw. And generally he's been very good at that, but we still it's sort of these little things, right? Do it all the time, right? We want to see the consistency continue to improve and to get up to where it needs to be so that it doesn't have to be hero balls to make up for 3-and-out, but just more, instead of all the highs and the lows, more steady. And then when they need the highs in really critical situations, then you can turn it on. But let's not get to the point where things are struggling and because of fixable mechanical issues and things he's maybe just doing a little too fast or just needs to kind of slow down and let it come to him on a few of those plays and just say, all right, take it easy. Get it to your receiver. These are really good players they put around you. They'll make the play. You don't have to do it all, Caleb. And I think he's getting better at adjusting that from college when he felt like he had to make the huge play all the time and also keeping his eyes downfield and knowing that, hey, you live to fight another down. He threw one away and had an intentional grounding, but good. Throw it away. I don't care. That's not ideal, but it's great progress, I think, for Caleb Williams. So really a lot to be excited about from the throws he made against the Cincinnati Bengals. Helped out perhaps by an offensive line, again, doing a pretty good job of giving him a lot of time in pass protection. It was also the preseason debut of Nate Davis. So we'll take a look at what we got up front from this game on both sides of the ball as we move forward, plus some other preseason standouts next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The winning formula for championships is also what keeps your vehicle at its best. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your car and level it up to peak performance. We're talking about exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, roof racks, and more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The Chicago Bears offensive line, once again, did a real solid job of giving Caleb Williams the kind of time in the pocket that he needs to make some of these throws. And it's not like all these throws took 8 seconds for the plays to develop, but even on the plays that weren't the big spectacular ones, even on the plays where the passes were incomplete, like drop back, hitch, throw, the time was there. The pockets were generally fairly clean. Sacked twice. One, after the game, he took blame for it. Said, yeah, I ran into that one. I held onto the ball too long. I put my offensive line in a tough spot. That sack is on me, which is like a great showing of leadership for Caleb Williams as well. Saying, like, not that he would come out and blame his offensive line, but no one was asking him to take credit for that sack, and he went out of his way to say, yeah, that one was on me. And of course, there are always going to be plays where he's under pressure and has to leave the pocket. And not every time leaving the pocket does that mean the offensive line was terrible or even bad. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of you've been in the pocket for 3.5 seconds. The offensive line is not expected to be able to hold up a pocket longer than 4 seconds. That's just not, in the NFL, anything beyond 4 seconds is just no longer the offensive line's fault. So, yeah, the tackle pushes the defensive end down and around the bottom of the pocket, and eventually the defensive end can just kind of keep running around and find his way around to the quarterback. Like, you can't block guys forever as an offensive line. And so some of the times when he escaped the pocket, it was necessary, but also like not the result of a lineman being beaten particularly badly. Saw Braxton Jones got beat inside at least once. That kind of led to kind of stepping up and throwing one of those funky off-platform throws that goes incomplete where it felt like the receiver was open and he probably could have still reset because Braxton Jones got beat and that moved Caleb a little bit, but then he followed through and then kind of was able to recover at that point. So it was still like a loss by Braxton Jones, a pressure, on the stat sheet, but not like a disaster because he was able to kind of finish the second half of that block and let the play continue for Caleb Williams. And then one of the sacks that Caleb Williams had was most definitely Nate Davis getting pretty badly beat on that play. And I'm not here to come on and pile on even more on everybody hates Nate Davis right now. I mean, he hasn't been able to practice nearly as much as we want him to be. He's been dealing with injuries for a long time. Everybody's looking for every reason to jump on Nate Davis. And I'm not going to take 1 out of 16 passing plays that he was pass blocking on and say, see, he's terrible and the Bears are screwed and need to put someone else at right guard. Because the other 15 plays were pretty darn solid there. This one, the guy literally spun him around until he was in Caleb Williams' lap, and it was a pretty embarrassing type of pass protection play. Like, someone is going to clip that when we get the All-22 tomorrow. Someone's going to clip it and put it on YouTube, or put it on Twitter, and it's going to get 150 retweets and 100,000 views or whatever, and everyone's going to pile on Nate Davis. And like, it's definitely a bad play and a bad block. He got beat badly on that one. I'm not here to defend it or defend Nate Davis, but just to say, like, it was 1 out of 15, 1 out of 16. And guys get beat sometimes, and sometimes they get beat bad. And more importantly, this is why you play him in the preseason, right? have him play. He's still getting back into real like game shape, still knocking some of the rust off. This is the time he's going to make the most mistakes. And you would rather him make the mistakes in a preseason game like this where it doesn't matter. The results of the game don't matter, and the Bears won anyway. The main thing that you're worried about is Caleb getting hurt as a result, and he did get sacked as a result, and that's not good. But like, other than that, no harm, no foul on Nate Davis getting beat for a sack against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it is the Cincinnati Bengals backups, which is a little bit concerning to me, and some of the Caleb misses kind of strike me that way too. Like, the Bears offense should not have gone 3 and out 3 times in a row against a backup defense. That's a concern. It's a preseason game. You're not game planning them. You're not putting together specific play calling plans for how you're going to attack them. So I'm not going to overreact to it. I'm not going to panic about it. I'm not going to make it a big deal and say, all of a sudden is Shane Waldron a bad offensive coordinator or ever. I mean, there were some weird play calling decisions in this game, including coming out with 3 straight passes to start the game for Caleb, I guess trying to get into a rhythm. They also threw a fullback screen to Kari Blasingame on 2nd and long that got obviously blown up. I don't know why fullback screen out of the shotgun is in the playbook or why it's something you would go to on 2nd and long in that situation when it was 2 backs. It was Caleb with Kari Blasingame to his left, and I don't remember if it was Herbert, whoever, another running back to his right, and the screen was to the fullback to the left. I don't know if that's like an element of surprise thing, like the defense isn't going to expect you to call a fullback screen, but it also just doesn't seem like a super smart, like, of all the playmakers on the Chicago Bears offense, if you had to rank from 1 to, I don't know how many there are, say there's 25 wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, and you had to rank who you would most and least like to get the ball to on a screen, Kari Blasingame might be at the very bottom of that list. I mean, I don't know, Mercedes Lewis or Kari Blasingame, who would you least like to throw a screen pass to? The 40-year-old tight end or the fullback? Like, I would rather throw that screen to every wide receiver, every other running back, and most of your tight ends before I would like to throw that screen to Kari Blasingame. So I didn't quite get that, but I'm not going to panic over a preseason play calling by a brand new offensive coordinator. Whatever. Not a big deal there. I was a little bit more concerned that the Bears offensive line seemed to struggle a bit in the running game. They really weren't able to get a lot cleared out for Khalil Herbert and when the starters were in there, but also even Velus Jones in the second half quite a bit. Like, again, against Cincinnati Bengals backups. Like, if it was a starting team, sometimes it's easy to say, okay, you're going up against a good defensive line or whatever, and sometimes it's hard to run the ball, and sometimes the other team just has your number a little bit in the running game. Can be understandable, but like, there weren't a lot of lanes for Khalil Herbert. I mean, that's a big part of some of those other 3 and outs was like they'd hand it off and get maybe 2 yards, and hand it off and get maybe 2 yards, and then throw it, and maybe they complete it, but it's short of the sticks or whatever. But like, the running game really struggled to get going against backups, and I would have liked to see them, especially from the offensive line standpoint, get going against backups. Like, I looked at the numbers. Khalil Herbert had 5 carries for 31 yards. It's a good average there. But out of his 31 yards, 26 yards were after contact. So basically, the offensive line got Khalil Herbert 5 yards, and Khalil Herbert got himself 26 yards after contact. Like, that was Herbert individually making, like, you saw him make that really nice cut and get back around on the longest run of the game he had. It was some kind of 15 or 20 yard run or whatever where he cut back on zone because he broke a tackle in the backfield and had to do the rest of the work himself. Like, the offensive line was not creating a lot of space in the running game. Herbert did a good job of creating it for himself, but would have liked to see more of that. And like, one of their longest runs, their second longest run was a wide receiver reverse from Rome Odunze, right? That wasn't like great blocking that freed up that run. It was, it was the trick play kind of aspect of it and getting everybody flowing one direction and then Odunze's speed going the other direction. So like, your 2 longest runs were because of the ball carrier, not because of the offensive line. And the rest of your runs barely add up to 50 yards over the course of this game. Like, it was not a good run blocking performance when the goal line, and against backups, that's particularly concerning. Whereas, like, this Bears defensive line for me was the inverse. This defensive line dominated the Bengals in the running game. Javon Dexter was a beast. He and Andrew Billings were blowing up runs on the inside. There was nowhere for backs to get through, and they were shutting down the Bengals running game. But even the Bears starting defensive line wasn't getting a ton of pressure against a backup offensive line. Montez Sweat had a nice rush. Dominic Robinson had one. DeMarcus Walker had one, but like, not anything super consistent for a starting group of defensive linemen that you're expecting to then be able to get a good pass rush against team starters, but they were struggling against Bengals backups. That was a concern for me as well, and I think it's part of why we've seen Matt Eberflus blitz so much. Blitzed both linebackers, blitzed the safety a couple times, blitzed the slot cornerback a lot. Even in the preseason, the Bears are saying, we got to blitz to get pressure on the quarterback. I think Ryan Poles still going to try and find at least one addition to make on this defensive line, most likely from the waiver wire. And I still think the interior is where we need more pass rush added as opposed to on the edge there, because Austin Booker played well once again with the backups. Some of the other backup edge rushers, later in the game were able to make some impressive plays here. So we'll go through some of the top standouts besides the quarterback and the offensive line from this preseason win over the Cincinnati Bengals next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And this time of year, FanDuel has something a little different for you, because now through September 22nd, so you got more than a month here, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. So literally a $5 bet on anything on FanDuel, whether it's Bears-Titans Week 1, Matt Eberflus Coach of the Year odds, Caleb Williams Offensive Rookie of the Year odds, or even Bears-Chiefs preseason game line. Any $5 bet, and you get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So to get your free 3-week trial, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sportsbook. As in any preseason game, we've got a lot of starter action through the first half there, at least for the Bears offense. A lot of the starting defense left closer to the end of the first quarter because they were just on the field more than the starting offense was. But as usual, it's a game more so about the backups than the starters. And I thought there were a handful of players across both sides of the ball that really stood out to me as like, oh, wow, these guys were either making themselves some money or securing their job a little bit more or whatever it might be in the competitions that they're in. Like starting with Tyson Bagent, I mean, as your backup quarterback, each preseason game as we've come along, like you get that much more confidence in him as your backup quarterback, as a #2 quarterback in the NFL. 7 of 8 for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Made a couple of nice throws, one up the seam to Dante Pettis, a couple of really nice touchdowns to Dante Pettis as well. We'll talk about him in a minute there. Obviously, another standout here, but also just like decisive with the football. Getting rid of it fairly quickly, but not just quickly to check downs, but like going through progressions quickly, making plays. The pocket presence is really impressive. Like I continue to be really impressed with Tyson Bagent and feel like he's a guy who, when his rookie contract, his undrafted rookie contract with the Bears is up after next season, you wonder if they'll be able to keep him at any kind of reasonable cost. Say either this season or next season, if he ends up making a couple of more starts in, because of injury or whatever, fingers crossed, hopefully not at all, but like the Bears, they said on the broadcast, I had not realized this. The Bears have not had a quarterback play every game to start all games of a season since 2009. Jay Cutler's first season was the last time the Bears had a quarterback play. At the time was all 16 games, but even since then, Trubisky never played a full season without missing a game to injury. Justin Fields never played a full game without missing injury. So like realistically, statistically, the odds are that Caleb Williams will miss a game every year. That's just unfortunate. You hope not, and maybe he can buck the trend and be the Iron Man for the Bears. But like, if Bagent gets a couple starts over the next couple seasons and continues to play well in those games, and then continues to have preseasons like this, he's going to hit free agency after 2025, and someone's going to give him $10 million to compete. They're going to make him a very well paid. I put him in like the Gardner Minshew type of category where it's like, you don't want him to be, you don't go in saying we want to go full in on this guy to be our starter, but say a team drafts a rookie and then signs Tyson Bagent to compete with him, like Sam Darnold in Minnesota, that kind of thing where it's like take a chance on him and another young player and let him compete it out. Like if he keeps on this current trajectory for an undrafted rookie free agent, like he is absolutely trending in that direction, and it's super valuable for the Bears to have as someone you really feel like you can count on, who also costs you less than $1 million against the salary cap right now. So another great performance from Tyson Bagent. And the receiver of choice today, or on Saturday, I should say, was Dante Pettis. 2 touchdowns, 3 catches, all 3 catches were really nice plays, a couple of nice routes run. The The first touchdown was a corner route in the back of the end zone where just smoked the guy on his break, ran a nice vertical stem right into his face, put a little hesitation move on him, and then broke to the corner and was well past him when the ball was in the air. Great connection there between quarterback and receiver. The second touchdown, a slot fade up the right sideline. Another really nice route, a perfect ball, though, from Tyson Bagent to drop it in there. I mean, they were connecting really well. And the other pass was a seam route up the middle of the field that was nice, too. So, really impressed by Dante Pettis, who I think is making a really strong case to make this 53-man roster as your number 5 wide receiver, right? I mean, obviously, we're talking about the big 3 at the top of the depth chart: DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Tyler Scott, pretty much your number 4 receiver at this point. But then it's like Velus Jones, Dante Pettis, DeAndre Carter, Freddie Swain, Simba Webster, all kind of competing for a couple spots there. And Pettis getting the punt return duties in this game as well. Had kind of a bad one, a stinker in there where he ran sideways and backwards, but catching the punts consistently. He's also a threat on other aspects of special teams. Sure feels like Dante Pettis is probably the number 5 wide receiver. And then it's a matter of, DeAndre Carter and Velus Jones and maybe Simba Webster. I'm guessing it'll be Carter and Pettis are your 5 and 6. And I still feel like Velus Jones probably misses this 53-man roster. But the game against the Chiefs will go a long way towards really solidifying who makes the team where. Because Velus didn't do great at running back in this game. Didn't have a ton of room to run from the offensive line, which we talked about earlier. So not fully his fault, but not making any kind of big time. He almost had a big return on the opening kickoff. He was one missed tackle away from a big return. And maybe they have more faith in him still than we do. But he's not showing me a lot in this preseason to say, yeah, he's got to have a spot on this 53-man roster. Whereas Dante Pettis is saying, yeah, and Colin Johnson's hurt. So, that's keeping him from making this team this season. And then it's a matter of, do they keep 5? Do they keep 6? And if I had to predict today, I would think it's DeAndre Carter and Dante Pettis. But I think we'll see all 3 of those guys with Velus Jones at running back against the Chiefs. And what they do in that game can still go a long way towards shaping that. A couple of quick defensive players I want to mention. Josh Blackwell, the backup slot cornerback behind Kyler Gordon, also had a big hit on a blitz on the quarterback that led to the interception. Also, the backup punt returner made a couple moves there. Really great special teams coverage player. I think he had a tackle or 2 in this game there as well. Really looking good. I think he's a guy who's pulling ahead in the backup cornerback job as well to make this 53-man roster. I played a little bit outside cornerback in the Hall of Fame game, so they're testing his versatility, but obviously primarily in the slot is where he's going to be at his best. And then on the defensive line, Daniel Hardy continues to kind of be an unsung defensive hero in these preseason games where he just gets pressures on the quarterback. He definitely leads the Bears this preseason in hits, hurries, sacks combined on the quarterback. And he's also been a 4-phase special teams kind of guy, making plays on kickoff coverage, blocking on kick return, running down on punts. He has been a special teams beast for them. And I think right now your defensive end group is obviously Sweat and Walker and Booker. And then it's Dominique Robinson's number 4 and Daniel Hardy's number 5. We just haven't seen Jake Martin at all this preseason, and I don't know if he's going to make the team, having not played at all this preseason. But Daniel Hardy is absolutely making it very difficult for the Chicago Bears to cut him because he's been so good on special teams and he's been making plays as a pass rusher. It's not just, we've seen, last season, I can never remember the name of the edge rusher last preseason who was making plays for the Bears. And the pass rushing outside defensive end, Terrell Lewis, had 2 or 3 sacks across a few different games, and we thought he might make the team, but not enough special teams, not enough in the running game for him. But Hardy has done it all throughout the preseason, and it doesn't get talked about at all either. So I still think he's probably the number 5 defensive end in their eyes, but they might keep 5. If DeMarcus Walker is going to kick inside and play a lot of defensive tackle, you want an extra defensive lineman on there, and he's a great special teams player. That's where they could keep 5 defensive ends instead of, say, 5 safeties, or instead of 9 offensive linemen. Although the Bears just activated 3rd-round pick Karan Amagaji off of the non-football injury list. He passed his physical, which means he'll start the ramp-up process and presumably practice maybe Wednesday and then maybe play Thursday. At this point, I wouldn't count on him playing Thursday, but if he's healthy enough to play on Thursday, he should play every single snap in that game. Don't take him off the offensive line. Get him some work in there. And then before you know it, cut-down day is next Tuesday. The Bears will have to be down to 53 players, and then the regular season is right around the corner. So a lot to still get through before these first week 1 game against the Tennessee Titans. That's why you got to make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Bears podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Short turnaround for the Bears this week before a, kind of a strange, I guess it's more normal now, but like a Thursday night preseason game feels dumb. Like, why would you do a short week? Why would you even schedule it that way? You got 2 weeks of the regular season. But regardless, at least it's an extra day because it's a Saturday to a Thursday as opposed to a Sunday to a Thursday. But we'll have to preview that this is going to be tough because we'll get a new Hard Knocks on Tuesday. And I'd like to recap Hard Knocks on Wednesday's podcast, but then the preseason game is Thursday. So it might have to be Thursday morning's podcast. We'll preview Bears Chiefs. We won't hear from Matt Eberflus again until Wednesday, and then we'll find out if the starters play. And I don't expect the starters to play against the Chiefs. I don't think we'll see any more Caleb Williams. I think this was it. They changed their practice schedule for Wednesday, so it'll be like half walkthrough, half practice like they did for the Hall of Fame game. We'll see. It'll still be official on Wednesday. I was wrong about the Bengals. I thought they wouldn't play against the Bengals, but I think that's why they decided to play against the Bengals, because I think they decided, no, instead we just won't play them against the Chiefs. But we'll figure it out, and we'll give you all the updates we can get right here on Locked On Bears. So thank you for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. If you're looking for a second listen, now that we're wrapping up, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. We talk about the Locked On Podcast Network being your team every day. That includes your fantasy football team. Vinny Iyer over there is always making sure you've got all the information you need to win your draft, win your league, make the waiver wire pickups you need throughout the season, and set your lineup. So for daily fantasy draft strategies to win your league, check out the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming back tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Bears and another opportunity to bear down.